some of the newer cables that have been released, including this one right here. Now this is what's called a component cable, and a component cable was the very first cable that was able to output picture in high definition. So this, as you can see, if you have a look at the cable, again you had your, this is a PlayStation one again, so you'd plug this into your PlayStation 3, or in fact the PS2 did support component, but it only went up to 480p, which is not high definition. So you could switch between composite or component with the PlayStation 2, but it did not output high definition because it's a standard def console. So if I look at the import for TV, there's quite a lot of imports. You have your Y, which is this is going to be the configuration. It's Y, PB, PBR, and I'll explain what that means in a little while. So you have your Y, which is your main input. You have your, because what it basically is, it's these are the three colors needed to make a picture. You need your green, you need your blue, and you need your red to make up once you got these colors, you can make any color on the TV. In order to get high definition, you needed your Y, which is the green, your PB, which is the red, and your PR, which is the blue, which meant it had your YPB PR. It's another name for the cables. And afterwards, obviously, you had your analog input. You had your red one for the left audio and your white for the right audio. So as you can see, it had 5 inputs, and this was the very first introduction to high definition, as I've said. And with the good thing about these cables, they had the gold plating on them, on the outside of the gold plating, and this reduced a lot of ghosting, which was a big problem with the component cables, as many people are complaining about the larger rate of ghosting that you got with these cables. But using the gold ones, or a decent set of component cables, the ghosting should disappear if you got a good set of component cables. And the good thing with component cables is that, well, I'll get onto that later. The good thing with using component against what I'm going to be talking about in a minute, HDMI, is all to do with this HDCP business, which I'll talk about in a little while. But anyway, back to component in itself, it's a very good cable, very easy to use, and what many people are using out there, which is the HD PVR, the Ava Media. Most of them all input with component. I know the new HD PVR 2, as I've talked about in the Q&A with Ramsjay, has recently come out, which has HDMI inputs and outputs, and the very first capture card to do so in 1080p. I know the Elgato had HD input and output, but it only went up to 720p. But the new HD PVR goes to 1080p, providing you have an Xbox 360, the newer gen Xbox 360 without the HDCP on it. So yeah, with component, if you had a TV, you'd mainly find component with the older HD plasma TVs that had the component input in. So along with that, you had to really, in order to be using a component, you really had to be the only reason you really use components if you're doing what I'm doing, which is recording through the HD PVR. Sorry about the phone, guys. The HD PVR. That would be one reason for you using component. Or another reason for using component is if you've got an older plasma HD TV with no HDMI inputs on it. So those would be the main 2 reasons why you'd be using component. Apart from that, I know a lot of people are using HDMI. But apart from that, it was a very good cable to use. You got the highest it went to is 1080i, which is 1080 interlaced rather than 1080 progressive. It went up to 720 progressive. But you know, there's always that controversy going about what's better to use, 1080i, 720p. The answer is indeed 720p, because you're getting a progressive picture. But that's another video, guys, I'll be talking to, so I won't get sidetracked by that. So that's component for you. We'll come back to that in a second. So the next, and then probably the most recently famous, is the HDMI cable, and that's basically, guys, that is your HDMI cable. There's nothing else to it. That's just it. So what you have, and you'll find these now. The only things you'll find that have HDMI out is your PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, HD DVD player, a Blu-ray player, or you might have to find, or some satellite receivers do have HDMI as well. You'll find on the output for laptops, camcorders. So there are quite a few things that you'll find, and and the new Wii U, which has just come out recently, also has HDMI. So I think people are getting the message now that last thing is switching to HDMI. So people are more turning towards HDMI now. So anyway, what you basically have with your HDMI, you have your 19-pin HDMI input on one side and one on the other side, and basically simply outputs from the console into the TV, and that's it. That's all your HDMI cable is. So if you put it side by side with the component cable, you can see which one is more convenient. Obviously it's going to be the HDMI cable. It's only just one cable. However, now this is the main disadvantage with using HDMI cable instead of component cable. Yes, you get a 1080p signal with the HDMI cable. However, if you're trying to record, now this is the big problem here. Recording through HDMI is a massive problem due to the HDCP that many satellite receivers, Blu-ray players, the PS3 is a big one, and some of probably the older Xbox 360s have the HDCP, which is the high definition copy protection right that is put on through hardware on most receivers, such as the PS3 and most satellite receivers. And this HDCP means you cannot record with these devices if they are HDCP ingraded. So when it comes to recording, it's better to, if you're coming to record, it's better to use component, because see, using HDMI cable, you're gonna get a black screen. Even if you're using the new HD PVR, you're gonna get a black screen. If you try it with the PS3, you're gonna get a black screen, and you're not gonna get any picture, any sound, because of the HDCP. Now, although the HDMI cable looks more convenient for just general play, when it comes to recording, I'd say use component hands down, because you see, when using component, it means you can record, off Netflix and all that. You can record off Netflix without any problems. If you try it with HDMI, it won't work. You'll just get a black screen again due to the HDCP. So when it comes to comparing and contrasting the two cables, it basically just boils down to what you're doing really. If you're just playing generally, I'd say any TV's got it. I'd say generally just use HDMI. If you're recording like me, I'd say use component. There isn't that big a difference in this day and age so far between 720p and 1080p, because 1080p has not really been as rectified and as has spent so much time on as much as 720p. And YouTube, when uploading in 1080p, it still doesn't look like how you'd watch 1080p on like a DVD or playback on your computer. So always record in 720p no matter what, and if you're recording, use a component cables, don't use HDMI because it won't work. So yep, that's it really. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Rate, comment, subscribe. This has been Boost Tech here, signing out. Have a pleasant day, and thank you for watching. Bye for now.